Day. And today, youths, all roads are leading to Homa Bay County. In as much as we're talking about devolution, everyone is going to Homa Bay County for the International Youth Conference or Devolution Conference that is bringing together youths from across the nation. It's bringing out leaders from different fields in the country, and the conversation is about sustainability and how well youths can be integrated into the economy and how well we can manage our state as a people, from the young people to the older generation. It is International Youth Day. Now, at this point, it is also a day when we will be having very interesting conversations here in studio, and the conversation will be about migration in Africa. That is migration laws and migration governance in Africa. And this conversation is important because for the longest time, as Africans or as a world or as a people, we have been shifting from places to places, from moving from countries to countries, moving from the places that our ancestors used to stay. And for once, I was told that Luos are related to Sudanese because we came from the same origin. Now, in the spirit of movement, this is from moving from one place to another. They came integration of borders, or where we had countries now. And now every country has its own rules that governs how humans move. And you know, it is inevitable. Humans will always be moving from one place to another. And this is, whether we like it or not, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, for various reasons. And that's why we are having this important conversation this morning on migration governance in Africa. And we'll also dive deeper into the East African community. We know it is the best so far in Africa, and as far as intermigration is concerned, moving from one country to another, we can move with IDs. But now we'll be looking at Africa at large, and to help us unpack this conversation, we'll be joined by Professor Alan. He's from who is the head of Migration Governance Reform in Africa program, and this is from the New South Institute. We've had various guests from the New South Institute, and they have shared with us various projects they are undergoing, or the programs or projects that they are taking. And today is not any different. We are going to be delving into the research program that Professor Alan is currently doing on migration governance in Africa, and he'll be sharing with us how well can we improve the welfare of migrants, on how well can we harness this opportunity of migration for the better of our continent, or for the economic development of our continent. And if this migration is sustainable, what can our governments do? Is it just in talks? Is it just in speeches that we hear our leaders talking about migration, and is it really happening on ground? If you were to move to a different country, is it really happening? We've seen Uganda as the best country so far in as far as when it comes to welcoming refugees or welcoming migrants, and we've seen also South Africa recording high numbers of immigrants in the country, and probably because of business. But we'll be looking at that conversation. How is this important to you as a Kenyan citizen, as someone who is coming from the continent, this beautiful continent called Africa? So that is the conversation that is lined up for you this morning on the launch. Also, we'll be having the newspaper review this morning, and we will be looking at different newspapers in the country that we are having today. We have the Standard, we have the Star, and we also have the Daily Nation. And to help us unpack this conversation, we'll be joined by our very own Ojwang Mariam and Fendo Godwin. They'll be joining us this morning to understand what is shaping our world as a country, as Kenya, this morning. Just to take a look at our dailies this morning, we have the Standard, and their biggest headline this morning is Shielding Lagat. It talks of different faces provided here. Inspector General, we have the DCI boss, Mohamed Ahmed, we have President William Ruto, we have Attorney General, different faces here. And the Standard says that 20 Kenyans have moved to court accusing President William Ruto, top security chiefs, and the Attorney General of shielding Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat from murder charges over the death of whistleblower Albert Ojwang, alleging a high-level cover-up, fabricated suicide theory, and a justice system stacked in favor of the powerful. Now that is given prominence on the Standard this morning. We also have a story. That story is on page 6, and we also have a story, torture in prison still under wraps. We have that story on page 10, where the Standard says rights defenders warn that torture, injury, and death in prisons are routinely concealed. They are now calling for full accountability, independent oversight, and urgent reforms. That story is on page 10. And also another story that is given prominence on the front page of the Standard this morning is pregnancy test in school trigger outrage, where legal experts and parents association have condemned school accused of forcing pregnancy tests on girls, calling the practice unlawful, degrading, and violation of privacy. If you have gone through a Kenyan high school, and especially a Kenyan girls' school, you understand that every opening day there is a pregnancy test that is going on. Not in every school, of course, because there are some schools where the only test that you are undergoing is they checking if you're having illegal food stuff entering the school. But in other schools, you have to undergo pregnancy tests, and there is outrage, and legal experts and parents are saying that the action is illegal and it is degrading to the young people. Last week we had a conversation, the front pages, that was last week on Tuesday. I think it was the Daily Nation which was telling us about the pain or the struggle of young girls finding it difficult to get pills, or that is fertility pills, whether it's post-acts pills or family planning pills from health facilities, and it is required for them to go with parents. And today we also have something that is also touching on the young girls. Now that they're at home, our panelists this morning will be helping us understand how effective is this, is it important, is it relevant, and why should we have this conversation, especially now that our girls are at home at the moment. Now, looking at the Daily Nation this morning, several stories are given prominence in the Daily Nation. It is, should I use the word chaotic? There are several stories on the front page of the Daily Nation, and the biggest that is given headline is storm overhiring of 10,000 police officers. And this is the push and pull between the police, Douglas Kanja, and National Police Service Commission for recruitment drive with the commission, and the process might be derailed once again because the IG wants to oversee the hiring process, which it is believed to be something that should be done by human resource. That includes hiring, promotions, and transfers. So that has really brought controversy in the police of this country. And police is given prominence both in the Standard and the Daily Nation for not so good reasons. Also, another story that is given prominence on the Daily Nation, we have court bars import of duty-free white rice. The government's plan to import 500,000 tons of white rice has been suspended by the High Court following a petition by the Farmers' Party, which claims the move will hurt local farmers. And also another story given prominence is about the 8 billion claims for civil servants. Tutors probe where insurance. It's a story about insurance. Senators petitions House to investigate unpaid health insurance claims for families of public servants who died or were injured while on duty. Still on health matters, the Daily Nation has a feature of a cancer patient who now runs out of life-saving drugs, and the 70-year-old apparently took the last dose yesterday, and the uncertainty of the Social Health Authority, that is SHA, poses his life or puts his life in danger. That is the story of the 70-year-old retired anesthetist who now faces an uncertain future without a comprehensive deal with the Social Health Authority. In sports, we have more millions houses offer for Harambee Stars, and President Ruto raises cash reward to each player, that is to 2.5 million should the national football team win Sunday's match, that is against Zambia. And that is just your top player. There is more to it, including affordable houses, that is 2-bedroom. If at all they win, it moves to a 3-bedroom apartment on the affordable housing. So that is the Daily Nation. And on the Star this morning, Story given prominence is millions lost in counties due to payroll scam, and key loopholes highlighted in county payrolls include fraud or manipulation of payroll, falsification of birth dates to remain in service beyond retirement. We have a remittance of more money to banks for salary payments than the amounts captured in payroll, use of manual system easily manipulated, excessive hiring, payment of ghost workers, payment of irregular wages and allowances, inflation of the number of casual workers. We have employees sharing the same bank account number. We also have lack of staff establishment and irregular appointments and redesignations. That is the loopholes that the Star outlines this morning that has led to millions of monies lost in counties' payroll. We also have no peace for the dead, vandalism and neglect. Dog City Mortuary. That story is on page 2 of the Star. We also have how a Ruto Raila Kalonzo election battle could play out. That is predictions of what is going to be of 2027, and that story is on the page 7 of the Star. There's a lot going on in the country, from music festival to youth conference or International Youth Day, the conference and devolution conference that is being held in Homa Bay County. Of course, we have, if you've heard of SHOFCO, it is one of the partners in the devolution, an organization that really is keen on empowering the young people of this country. Now that we are celebrating the young people, that conversation is on also on our newspaper review this morning. At this point, let's take a look at what is happening on our roads and the weather. All right, now it is 47 minutes past 7 a.m. and it is a very chilly Tuesday. It is cold. This morning as I was coming to work, I saw several people sleeping by the road. With this weather, I really felt it is high time that we start looking at how we can manage the street life, or those people who are sleeping on the streets. But looking at the traffic situation this morning, it's not looking so good. It is 47 minutes, around almost 50 minutes past 7 a.m. And if I look at Thika Road, there is a little bit of slowdown compared to other days where we're always seeing a slowdown or traffic from Thika Road Mall. But today it is beginning from KCA, that is from Survey, all the way to Pangani Interchange, and just a little bit of the tributary joining Thika Road, that is from Kiambu, it is Kiambu Road. There is a little bit of slowdown along that route, that is from KCA to Pangani. And if I look at other tributaries leading to town, that is those people who are coming to town using Mombasa Road. The tributaries, that includes those coming through Langata Road, entering town through the roundabout, those coming through, what is the name of this road? That is Kenyatta Avenue, around Uhuru Park. Those also using that road. It is a little bit, there is a little bit of slowdown, not as usual. It is quite easy because if I look at the patches of red, it is not that much, except those who will be joining town through railways. You know that road I'm talking about, which is always, everyone is always highlighting on that road and walking to their destinations. So those are just the few roads that we are seeing slow down. Those people who are using Jogo Road, your road looks quite okay this morning. And those who are joining Mombasa Road through Embakasi, that is the airport, through Southfield Mall, there is a little bit of slowdown, but it is moving. Those people are coming from Pipeline, also a little bit of slowdown, but it is moving, not like other days where we see continuous stretch of red. Today it's intermittent. It is a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, so that means it is moving. So in most parts of the country or Nairobi, those are tributaries leading to town. Those people are going to town. There is not much to report on, except that The traffic, it is slow, yes, but it is moving, not as it is in other days. So taking a look at the weather this morning, let's begin from where we are, and that is Nairobi. I told you it's a chilled morning. It is a chilly morning. It is 13 degrees Celsius in Nairobi. It feels like it. No sign of precipitation throughout the day. And if it will be, it is at 10%. There is 10% chances. Humidity at 86%. And wind at 3 kilometers per hour. So that is quite chilly this morning. That is in Nairobi. If we take a look at another town in this country, it is Eldoret. And you know Eldoret is a city, right? So it is 16 degrees Celsius. Nairobi today is quite more cold. It's more cold by 3 degrees Celsius than Eldoret, because at Eldoret right now, it is at 16 degrees Celsius and it feels like it. So that is Eldoret. And taking a look at another city in this country, I can't forget to mention Kisumu. Kisumu is always warm. It is 20 degrees Celsius and it feels like 24 degrees Celsius. And remember, it is 7:51 in the morning and it feels like 24 degrees Celsius. So by the time it's at 2 a.m., not 2 a.m., 2 p.m., no one is walking wearing heavy clothes. That's why it has really interfered with our skin tone. So don't blame us. It's the weather. So that is Kisumu. And in Kisumu, there are 40% chances of rainfall at around 5 p.m. in the evening. So that is in Kisumu. They're expecting rainfall that is at around 5 p.m. That is in the evening. So those are just among, I've just mentioned 3 cities in the country. And this morning also, I forgot to mention that we'll be having a feature. We are all sporty as a country, and Harambee Stars has united us as a country. The new millionaires in town, the millionaires team, has interacted with us. So that is on the weather. I'll be telling you more about the games in the country right now. We are all sporty as a country or as a continent, that is Africa, and several countries have flown or are in the 3 states, that is Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And we are co-hosting Chan, and we'll be having a feature later on in this coverage this morning on what is not talked about in football, especially in Africa. Be it underfunding, be it low fund base, be it management. We'll be having a feature that covers that in this show this morning. And now that we are in that spirit, that is what we bring you what concerns you and what is relevant to you. And that is what we have prepared for you this morning. And in the spirit of togetherness also this morning, I mentioned earlier that we are going to be having a conversation on migration, and that is migration governance in Africa. And focus is on the East African community, and we'll be joined by Professor Alan, who's the head of Migration Government Reform in Africa program at the New South Institute. He'll be helping us understand what is not always talked about, because we always focus on refugees, we always talk of policies, how well can we integrate them in our society, what best suits them in terms of human rights, how are they comfortable, are they getting the necessary amenities, that is in health, in education, are they comfortable in our country, and that is from the empathy perspective. But we rarely talk about what this really means for us as a country. We rarely talk about security issues, we rarely talk about the job market, we rarely talk about the implications of them coming in the country and how they benefit a country, that is in terms of economics, and as far as that is concerned, the budgeting that is concerned for them, and how the tax burden that it has on a country that they are in. We rarely talk about those conversations. So helping us understand this further is Professor Alan, who will be joining us after the break, and we'll talk about migration governance in Africa. Are we well governed, or do we need further reforms? That is with the focus of Eastern African community. That conversation is coming shortly after the break.
Access to knowledge, solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Ni nguzo na uso wa jamii. Kupanda shuka akawa tuzo, ukakamavu wake ukatii na kumfanya mwenye bidii. Kwa machozi na makeke akabaini jinsi ya kuweni. Huyu ni mwanamke ngangari kwa jinsi alivyo ng'ari.
Mimi ni mwanamke mwake.
Usikose kutazama kipindi cha mwanamke mwake nami Caroline Kimwele.
Ungana nami Malkia wa Taarab katika mitindo ya kipwani hapa KUTV. Yaani tunapozungumzia mitindo ya kipwani basi unaona napigwa na mawimbi makali sana ya baharini kutoka katika ufuo wa hoteli moja inayofahamika kama North Coast Beach Hotel, ambao ndio wadhamini wa kipindi hiki cha mitindo ya kipwani. Penzi mtazamaji, kwenye mitindo ya kipwani hutakosa kupata mapishi ya vyakula vya kipwani. Yaani hapa tunazungumzia vyakula vilivyokolezwa na kukorombezwa. Iliki, karafuu, abdalasini, samaki wa baharini, vyakula vilivyopikwa na kusukwa kwa kutumia nazi. Bila kusahau mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja, mazungumzo ya kusisimua na wataalam tofauti, waandishi wa vitabu waliobobea, watunzi wa kuhani mashairi. Bila kusahau mpenzi mtazamaji, taratibu zetu za taarabu na chakacha. Yaani pale ni pale ambapo viuno vya wanawake vinazungushwa kisawasawa kama panga boy za trekta ndani ya KUTV mitindo ya kipwani. Ukiwa nami nahodha wako Waridi Tamu. Usiyakose matamu jamani.
Hamu na tamaa ya kutaka kujua kinachoendelea katika hifadhi ya maiti ndio mwanzo wake wa kutagusana na familia zilizofiliwa.
Mara nyingi una tailor the counseling session to how this person comes to you. You look at them, you understand where their particular pain is.
Sasa Mercy Kesia ni mtaalamu wa kutoa ushauri wa kisaikolojia kwa waliofiwa. Usikose kutazama kipindi cha mwanamke mwake kwa uhondo kamili, ukiwa nami Caroline Kimwele. wa jamii. Kupanda shuka akawa tuzo, ukakamavu wake ukatii na kumfanya mwenye bidii. Kwa machozi na makeke akabaini jinsi ya kuweni. Huyu ni mwanamke ngangari kwa jinsi alivyo ng'ari. Mimi ni mwanamke mwake. Usikose kutazama kipindi cha mwanamke mwake nami Caroline Kimweli.
This year, North Coast Beach Hotel has exciting holiday offers just for you. Whether you're planning a July escape, an August family break, or a magical Christmas getaway. For July special, book 2 nights and get 1 night absolutely free, all for just 17,314 Kenya shillings per person, sharing on half board, as you enjoy access to free swimming, a fully equipped gym, guided reef walks, and a complimentary sauna session for each booking. For August family offer, make memories with your loved ones at only 11,543 Kenya shillings per person, sharing for a 2-night stay on half board. There's free family entertainment, fun indoor games, and lots of activities for children, plus a 10% discount on all extra services during your stay. For the December Christmas holiday, celebrate your festive season in paradise. Book before 31st October to enjoy our exclusive Christmas deal. Stay 3 nights between 23rd December and 2nd January 2026 at only 34,628 Kenya shillings per person, sharing on half board. And for our flexible payment plan, take advantage of our lipa mdogo mdogo and pay in easy installments. Call us today to book on 0722 209 458 or 0733 409 430 or email info@northcoastbeachhotel.com. North Coast Beach Hotel, your home in paradise.
Get ready to embark on a journey into the exciting world of technology as we uncover the latest trends, interview top thought leaders, and dive deep into the world of tech like never before.
Currently, we are facing the challenge in terms of finance. It requires one to move from different counties because we really need a large data set for our model to be more accurate.
In this new and exciting series of the Technovation Show, join me, Yvonne Kimuma, every Monday 8:30 p.m. for a fun and thrilling experience as we explore the cutting-edge developments, meet visionaries driving change.
Somebody who is in the underground mine doesn't know the presence of those gases. So there are a lot of gases involved. There is methane, there's carbon monoxide, and there's also hydrogen sulfide. These gases actually, they are very dangerous and they're very toxic.
And discover the endless possibilities of the tech world.
We are set and ready for the discussion on migration governance in Africa. And joining us this morning, Daktari or Professor Alan is already here with us, joining us online from the United Kingdom, and he'll be helping us unpack this conversation on how well are we governed as Africa or as a continent in as far as migration is concerned. Professor, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. How are you?
Good morning, Sylvia. I'm fine, very well, thank you, and happy to be on your show. I have been on once or twice on this channel.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you back and engaging with our viewers back at home, and I'm sure they are also pleased to have you share your knowledge and your expertise in this field of migration. Now, I've been looking at the latest report or the latest project conducted by the National the New South Institute, and this is shifting our focus from what we are used to traditionally, and it's shifting our focus from the past where we've been looking at migration as a movement of people just from one place to another, probably those seeking asylum, those who are moving because they're seeking greener pastures in as far as economics is concerned. But in most instances, we failed to look at conversations around civil registration, identification progress, processes and management of information related to criminal and security risks. These are conversations that we are yet to delve into as a country or as a continent. From the project that you have carried out, how far are we so far in as far as these topics or these areas of discussions? How far are we in terms of implementing them?
Well, actually, as far as Kenya is concerned, and some of the original members of the East African community, and also Rwanda, Burundi, there's quite a lot of advance that has been made in cooperation. So, there have been recent decisions and some decisions from 2015 to allow people to cross borders between Uganda, Rwanda, and Kenya without passports, simply with ID documents. And that demonstrates a level of trust between the countries and between the systems of those countries, that they can identify people appropriately, that their systems are good, that they allow such movement across their borders. And some of the other countries in the region, Tanzania and Burundi, are a little slower to come on board in terms of, but that's not really because their systems are bad. In Tanzania, I think their systems are pretty good too, but they're a little bit more reluctant to get fully integrated. I guess the big challenge in East Africa, as I'm sure all of your viewers and readers and listeners know, is the newer members of the East African community, the South Sudan, the DRC, and Somalia, which are countries that are not quite as developed as Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and others in terms of their systems. And it's really important that they are brought into line so that their citizens have the same rights as the citizens of the more developed countries in the region.
Mm-hmm. And how would you describe a well-managed migration policy?
That is very hard. A well-managed migration policy, you can do it in a simple terms. It's a policy that meets the social and economic needs of the countries concerned, but at the same time gives the citizens of that country the assurance that they are being properly looked after by the authorities. So on the one hand, there's enough freedom for people with skills and people who are needed in the economy and people who needed culturally or in academia, cross borders, and also in seasonal labor sometimes. But at the same time, the people in that country feel comfortable enough that their government is looking after them. That is really the definition of good governance in migration. It's a very difficult balance to achieve, as we see all over the world at the moment.
All right. You have mentioned of comfortability, that is of the people in a country that they're in. That is what makes a good policy. So if we are talking about comfortability, for someone to be comfortable in a place, they need to feel the sense of I belong. And if we're talking about country in a country perspective, that is from identification. You're having your identity cards, or you are registered and you're identified, you're allowed to work freely. We've seen that as a challenge. And not just in Africa, we've also seen that in Europe, we've also seen that in the United States, where migrants really don't have the capability of working freely because they lack the identification. So from the research that you have done, How well can we do this as Africans? Should we have a common identification as a continent, or how well can we do this?
Well, I think that the East African community um, and the West African community, ECOWAS, are leading the way. There are common regional passports in those countries. So when you carry a passport, when you're a Kenyan carrying a passport, it's a passport that is common to the East African system. Um, Not all of the countries of East Africa are equally integrated into those systems. But compared with the rest of Africa, East Africa is quite advanced. The issue that you raised with Europe and North America, there, you know, those problems go quite deep. In those countries, since the global financial crisis, most of the citizens, poorer and middle class citizens, haven't done terribly well. The government system supporting, and that's true probably in most of the world, perhaps to some extent in Kenya, um, th- that and there's a fear that migrants are going to take their citizens' share of health systems, of social benefits, and so on. So there's a kind of an anxiety about migration in Europe and in North America and in some of the richer Asian countries at the moment, which I think hasn't been resolved yet. And I think that they can learn quite a bit from East Africa, actually, in terms of how to resolve it. But as you know, the European system works very, very well if you have a European passport, if you have a passport of a country that's a member of the European Union, and that's a large union now. It's about 27 countries. So if you're a Romanian and you want to work in France, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to do that. But if you're an Algerian or a Moroccan or Cameroonian and you want to work in France, it's become much more difficult in recent times. And that's something that's partly a result of the general economic situation where citizens don't feel that they're being properly looked after by their governments in those countries, and therefore they're afraid of too many foreigners.
All right. Now, this movement is majorly, especially in the modern days, we are more focused on economic development, and this involves moving skills, that is, professional skills. And sometimes some professional skills in our African setup, most of the skills that are moved are probably unskilled, and that is, I'm talking about unprofessional skills. That is, those people working in formal sectors. But in as much as we are targeting economic empowerment or development fostered by this migration, there is the question of security and the effects of making our borders porous, whether legally or illegally. Because with much migration, with increased migration, there comes a problem of insecurity. So if this is something that we should embrace, migration, especially of skills, why then is it that our governments are really pushing towards closing the borders?
Well, in East Africa, they generally are not closing borders. I think there are some anxieties about people from the more troubled countries in the East African region, the ones I mentioned earlier, where there has been quite a lot of internal conflict and conflict in general, and therefore quite a lot of refugees. And East Africa and the Horn of Africa has one of the biggest refugee situations in the world. And the burden that the countries of East Africa carry in terms of refugees are quite disproportionate to their level of economic development. So they're doing an incredible job, incredibly good job, relatively speaking, with a very difficult situation. Now you talk about skilled and low-skilled workers. So for skilled workers, it's not that difficult. So if you're an architect or an accountant or a lawyer, and you're a Rwandan and you need to build a house, you need to design and build a house in Uganda, it's generally very easy. Um, it's completely easy. You'll easily be able to cross that border. You'll be able to work. You'll be able to be paid. You'll be able to transfer the money back to your country and so on. If you're a low-skilled worker, a farm worker, or a worker in the security services, maybe uh, working in a taxi driver, possibly, um, you might find it more difficult. Um, so a lot of, as I'm sure the citizens of Kenya know, a lot of the lower skilled migrants in East Africa, as in true in most parts of the world, are not are irregular, are informally employed. They cross the border informally. They are accepted because they really are an essential part of the system. It would be very difficult to send back all the um, people who are working in Kenya who are not really officially supposed to be there, but and at the same time there are anxieties about it. So the real challenge is how to manage low skilled migrants, and there are arrangements that have been developed between some countries, for example between Spain and some countries in Africa and and Latin America, between Canada and some Latin American countries, where they try to manage that situation much better. They allow long-term contracts for those skilled workers, but they don't give them any rights to become citizens. So people work for 5 years or 10 years as an agricultural worker in Canada if they come from Guatemala. They go back to their country, they build their own business, and they know that they're not ultimately allowed to live in Canada, but while they're there, they are given all the rights that workers have, other than the right to remain there forever. And there are systems like that around the world, which I hope that we're all able to move towards over time.
All right. Now, and what will it take for African countries to trust each other enough to share migration data?
Well, I think the key thing is that the integrity of the systems is good. So if there is a situation where you have fraud or corruption in a Department of Home Affairs, where it's possible to bribe your way to get a passport or to get a citizenship document, an ID document, whatever the document is, then there are going to be issues. So there has to be some level of trust that the systems are not corrupt, but also that the systems speak to each other, so that the ID system in Uganda speaks to the ID system in Tanzania and Kenya and so on, that there's an integration of systems. So what also helps is if the standards are the same. So people apply at a certain age, they get a certain kind of a number, they're attached to a certain kind of a register. And in East Africa, there are advances in coordination around those issues, which are in advance of many other regions in the world. But again, there are some countries that are more integrated in the East African community than others.
All right. We've mentioned before labor mobility and skills recognition. That is as far as migration is concerned, the movement. So how well, or from the research that you have done, the projects that you have done, why is it that we still face immense restriction in terms of labor mobility, yet there is a dire need of skills in countries that someone may want to move to?
Well, I think that it comes back to the question that we were discussing earlier. If people, I normally live in South Africa. I'm in London temporarily at this time. In South Africa, there is a level of unemployment of about somewhere between 30 and 40%, and for young people, it's even higher than that. And even though there are people who say an engineer from the DRC could get a job and take a job in South Africa, that that nobody else in South Africa is able to do, or there may be a shortage of people with her skills, there's a kind of a resentment and a kind of a fear because there's a sense that our jobs are being taken away. So it's very difficult in a country where the economy isn't doing very well to be as open as you would like to be in terms of skills. But we do have a system, say this is the South African example. We've recently introduced a system of points. In fact, I think it's still being introduced at the moment, but there's a commitment by the Home Affairs Department to say that if you have a certain number of points, that means you have a certain level of qualification and a certain level of experience that is relevant to South Africa, then there will be very little difficulty for you to come. So if you are, in fact, a DRC water engineer, and there's a huge need for water engineers in South Africa, it will be easy for you to not only come to South Africa, but also to get a job in South Africa and to be allowed to work. So we do have systems like the point system. We also have systems in East Africa. For example, there is a system where there are certain skills which have been identified by each of the countries in East Africa where people are easily able to move from one country to another. So Kenya will identify skills it needs, Uganda, etc. And those are some of the systems that have been developed to make it easier for skilled people to move, even though there are anxieties about migration.
All right. And do you think there's any chance for it to be harmonized in terms of uniformity of labor and skills across different regions in Africa, be it East Africa, South Africa, North Africa? Is there a way in which the skills can be harmonized?
Well, that's quite a challenge. So what we're talking about there is really the qualifications framework. So if I'm a South African and I have a master's degree in psychology and I want to get a job as a psychologist in Kenya, does Kenya recognize my psychology degree as being of a kind of a level that is appropriate? Or if I have a school leaving certificate from Rwanda, does that carry the same value as a school leaving certificate in Kenya? And that is a fairly difficult thing to achieve. So harmonization of qualifications framework is a difficult thing to achieve, but in countries which have reasonably good governmental systems and compared to much of the world, that is true in some of the East African countries and some other countries in Africa. Certainly in West Africa, in North Africa, in Southern Africa, there are quite sophisticated countries. It shouldn't be impossible to do that. There's also issues of having similar systems for help in terms of health. And what if I'm a South African and I'm working in Kenya and I need access to the health system? Under what terms would that be allowed? And would a Kenyan be allowed similar terms in South Africa? So in those areas, we're not very advanced in Africa. It's easier where we have a similar colonial background. So in say the countries in Africa which operated under a similar colonial system, there would be some historic relationship between their social systems. But we've got a long way to go in that area, much further than in say Europe, where that has been achieved to a much higher, greater extent.
Mm-hmm. Now that we are talking about our background in terms of colonialism, is refugee policies in Africa genuinely humanitarian or just focused on donations?
Well, it's difficult to balance it out. I mean, the obvious example is Uganda. So Uganda has been very open to refugees and has had policies which allow for the inclusion of refugees in terms of jobs, in terms of becoming farmers, in terms of starting businesses that are really in advance of many other parts of the world. There are quite a lot of articles, academic articles about Uganda saying this is a benchmark that we should be aspiring to in other parts of the world. And then at the same time, you have the critics of Uganda. They say Uganda is gaming the system. Uganda gets lots of money from the UNHCR and from the IOM and from donor organizations. I think on balance, I'd much rather be a refugee in Uganda than a refugee in many other parts of the world at the moment. So, okay, so the donors are helping, and Uganda is using the system of donations very well, but you wouldn't complain about that if you were a refugee. I think in most East African countries have done a pretty good job when it comes to managing the huge refugee issues that they've had to deal with. Although it is very difficult. I mean, in Kenya, for example, you have some refugees who are expected to stay in camps or in settlements, some who are allowed to settle more freely. In some parts of the country, there's more freedom to employ refugees, and others it's more difficult, or the refugees operate under more difficult circumstances. But overall, I would say in East Africa, refugees are treated more humanely than in many other parts of the world.
Now, in Africa, let's leave that conversation at that. But in Africa, there is a belief that you can't separate anything that deals with governance from politics. And that brings a myth of migration is more of political than economic. So how well do we address the tensions between the host communities and the migrants? Because this is something that sometimes it's believed to be political.
Well, it can, at election time, you find issues of migrants and migration sometimes are raised by politicians who are trying to get an advantage. And if you're a government, you might say, we would be providing better services, but there are too many refugees. And if you're the opposition party, you could say, well, the government isn't handling the migrant issue very well. If we were in power, we would have less migrants and everybody would be better off. And that's generally very irresponsible talk. It's talk that doesn't really bear any relationship to policy, but it's difficult to manage. So in some parts of Africa, I mean, again, I'm South African. I'm not proud of the way that politicians in South Africa have exploited, some of them, not all of them, but some of them have exploited migrants as political footballs, effectively, that they use them to gain popularity and make promises that they can't keep. So we're generally a long way from having an ideal situation, but again, there are some parts of the world which do deal with it better than others. And recently, in fact, last year in the Spanish Parliament, the Spanish Prime Minister spoke very clearly and said, we have to choose. Are we going to develop as a country? Are we going to grow and become more prosperous as a country? If so, we have to have a more open policy towards migrants. Or we're going to close our borders and we're going to deteriorate, our standard of living is going to deteriorate. It's very rare for a politician to speak like President Sanchez in Spain, and I wish more politicians would be more open to their people like he has been.
All right. Recently, we've witnessed a situation in Kenya. It didn't just affect Kenya, but it was a directive from the Tanzanian government that certain job opportunities will be restricted for foreigners, and it will only be allowed for Tanzanian nationals. And this created a really intense debate, especially from Kenya, because most of our business people just move downwards if they go to Tanzania for businesses. And From where you sit, how does such directive interfere with regional economic development?
Um, well, it's not. It's ideally you wouldn't have that kind of restriction. Ideally, you would have something that is more objective and say, if we need people also with certain skills, then we will allow foreigners to do that. And Tanzania, as your listeners will know, hasn't been quite as enthusiastic about all the aspects of East African integration as the three countries which have been really at the core of it, Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. And from time to time, politicians do things which are quite difficult to understand from the outside, but they're often related to domestic politics. There's quite a lot of competition in Tanzanian politics at the moment. And I think, politicians are grasping at issues which they hope will make them more popular, but probably aren't really going to be implemented effectively and are not really in the interest of their people or their country.
And do you think African leaders really want the movement of people from one country to another, or it's just words they give to their citizens?
No, I think that there's increasing openness in Africa. We're a long way from where we should be, but there've been even in Southern Africa where we can travel across borders without visas, we still have to carry passports. But a couple of years ago, Botswana and Namibia agreed that citizens could cross borders with ID documents only. That's been expanded to other countries in the Southern African region. I think Zambia and Namibia made a similar commitment last year. I think that there is a level of commitment, but it's much easier to do it with people in your neighborhood, in your regional community, than it is across Africa as a whole. So the countries which have opened their borders, like several countries in East Africa, the countries which have opened their borders to visa-free travel from any other country in Africa are the most progressive in terms of those kinds of policies. And I think that we are moving in the right direction in Africa, but the movement is very slow.
Mm-hmm. And what incentives could get members of a regional bloc, all of them moving in the same pace?
Well, that's very hard. I don't think they should be forced to move at the same pace. So I think the fact that some countries in East Africa have moved ahead of other countries in East Africa is okay, as long as there's a general commitment. In the long run, we're going to get there, because when a few countries, say the example I gave of Namibia and Botswana, if a couple of countries in a region do something and it works, then other countries in the region are going to say, okay, and their people are going to say, okay, it's working, why don't we do that as well? So I don't think we all have to move forward at the same pace. But as long as we are moving forward, that's what's important. And it is easiest to move forward at a regional level. There was an African commitment to free movement that was agreed by a summit of African leaders 7 years ago now. That hasn't advanced very rapidly because it's much more difficult to contemplate free movement between countries that are very far apart, that have very little social or cultural or commercial contact with each other. It's much easier to build from the regions and then for the continent as a whole.
All right. Now, you've said that it is very hard for countries in a region to move at the same pace. What do you think is the reason for this? Because we've had policies given, we've had recommendations given by scholars, by advisors to various governments in the African Union, all these bodies that brings different countries together. We've had various policies that are given. Why is it hard for them to move towards the same goal?
I think one of the reasons is that there are very high levels of inequality between countries, not only within countries but between countries in Africa. So, for example, in the East African community, countries like Kenya have average incomes which are maybe 10 times higher than the poorer countries in the region. So there can be a concern about those inequalities. And then to get back to the topic that we were started off with, there may be concerns about their systems of management. Does the country that you are partnering with have proper civil registration systems? Is the ID document and passport system open to corruption, or is it a system that has integrity? Those are some of the issues that do constrain us, and that's why we should be cooperating in terms of moving forward. So, if some of the countries in East Africa have systems that are not as advanced as others, there should be cooperation between those countries and between some donors, if there still are donors who are going to help as well, to bring the countries in line with each other, that there is a higher level of trust.
All right, now as we bring this to an end, what is the biggest lie, from your assessment, what is the biggest lie that Africans tell themselves about migration?
What's the biggest lie that Africans tell themselves about migration? Well, I think the biggest lie is those people who are afraid of foreigners because they are foreigners. I don't think that that's uniform in Africa. I think that many Africans identify as African, and that for middle class people it's very easy. I think for poor people, that fear of foreigners taking their social services and their jobs is something which is a bit of a lie, because usually the problem with the social services and the jobs isn't that foreigners are taking it, there just aren't enough of them. So I think that's the biggest lie that we tell ourselves, is if we are poor and we can't get access to certain things, that the reason is that foreigners are getting those accesses.
All right, that is quite fair. And from your assessment and from your research that you have done in relation to migration for a number of years, almost 10 years and more, what do you think is the strongest recommendation you'd give to African countries to allow open borders that allows free trade and economic development and integration of different cultures to allow a whole prosperity as a region, not just as one state or as East African countries, but Africa as a whole?
Well, I think that we can move as Africa as a whole, but we have to build from our regions and our neighborhoods. Many years ago there was a debate between President Nyerere of Tanzania and President Nkrumah of Ghana in the 1960s, so that's 60 plus years ago. Nkrumah said we must move towards an African Union, or a union of African countries, as quickly as possible. And Nkrumah said, and each of them obviously had groups that supported them. Nkrumah said, no, we must build integration on a regional basis, and then when we're ready, we develop those relationships between regions and between countries of different regions. And I think that Nkrumah has proved to be right. I think it is much easier to build from the bottom upwards. And, we have 54, 55 countries in Africa. It's a huge continent with a huge number of countries speaking different languages. We have to build from the bottom, and eventually we will get there if we are committed to do that. But it's probably easier to do it at a regional level than at a continental level. Although, obviously, bilateral relationships between South Africa and Kenya, or South Africa and Ghana, have improved enormously. I mean, I can now travel to Ghana without a visa. Kenyans can travel to South Africa without a visa. There are improvements for longer distance travel, but those are usually in the more advanced countries and for middle class people. but we'll get there. I think we in Africa are heading in the right direction, whereas some people in other parts of the world have been heading in the wrong direction.
All right. I really love how hopeful you are. And what would you advise, or you've given us the advice, and now at this time I'd like you to give us any final remarks based on your research, based on your assessment, any final remarks or something that we have left out for our viewers back at home.
Well, I just want to mention that, the report that we recently wrote on East Africa is part of a series of African reports. We've done a number of country studies, and we've done a number of studies of regions. And what we've learned from this is that Africans can learn from each other, that the achievements of East Africa or West Africa are relevant to the progress that North Africa or Southern Africa are able to make. So if we're able to meet and engage and exchange information and learn from each other in Africa, we can make tremendous advances. We don't have to try to copy the rest of the world all the time.
All right, and I love that people are able to learn from each other as a country, and it all begins from a single state, how you're managing your migrants in the country that you are before allowing intertrade between one country and another. Thank you so much, Professor, for making time for us this morning. I know it's so early for you from where you are, and it is always a pleasure to have you talk to our viewers right here on Biashara Tuesday.
Thank you very much, and I hope they all have a good day.
All right, wishing you the very best of your day as you proceed with the rest of your activities that are planned for the day. Right here on Biashara Tuesday, we are going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with a future that I told you about, and that future is on what is not told about the sports, especially the African sports, and that is football that we are talking about. We'll be looking at that future later on. We'll be taking a look at what is shaping our world of news and governance, and that is on the newspaper review. That coming up shortly after the break.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audiovisual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
Access to knowledge, solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
kuchoka akawa tuzo, ukakamavu wake ukatii na kumfanya mwenye bidii. Kwa machozi na makeke akabaini jinsi ya kuwini. Huyu ni mwanamke ngangari kwa jinsi alivyo ng'ari. Mimi ni mwanamke mwake. Usikose kutazama kipindi cha mwanamke mwake nami Caroline Kimwele.
Are you healthy, or rather, do you maintain a healthy lifestyle? According to WHO, health is regarded as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. Welcome to Focus on Health, a show on all matters health, wellness, and lifestyle. On this show, we cover a wide variety of topics inclusive of, but not limited to, dental, optical, mental, reproductive health, and so much more. Join me, Joy Bofenda, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on KUTV for compelling insights and discussions on all matters health. See you then.
Focus on Health, your weekly dose of health and wealth information on KUTV.
Fashion. It's more than just clothes. It's a statement, a feeling. An art form, a way to express yourself, a reflection of who you are. It's Fashion Diaries. Join me, Ashley Asachi, every Monday from 8 p.m. as we bring you Kenya's latest trends. Imagine fashion designers, glamorous fashion events, runway shows, red carpet events, and so much more. Fashion Diaries, unleashing your inner fashionista.
Whenever you hear about football, you probably think of goals, showdowns, and packed stadiums. But behind the thunder of the crowd is a side of the game many rarely talk about. The business, how teams survive, how players get noticed, and how the sport grows beyond the pitch. Marketing in sport isn't just about posters and billboards. It's about creating an experience, selling the team, the players, and the dream. In Kenya, football clubs depend heavily on sponsorship to stay alive. Betting firms like SportPesa and Betika have dominated the scene, supporting both local leagues and community tournaments.
FKF and SportPesa as title sponsors of the Premier League in Kenya starting from next season. For the 10 years, the total amount will be 1.12 billion shillings, starting with 85 million shillings for the next season.
But while the love for the game is massive, many clubs struggle to market themselves as brands. Few have active merchandising, organized digital strategies, or even modern ticketing systems. That's a big problem in a time where fans want more than just the 90 minutes. Globally, clubs make millions from broadcasting rights, match day revenue, and merchandise. In Kenya, most of that remains untapped. When SuperSport pulled out of the Kenya Premier League in 2017, visibility and income. Match attendance is low. Many fans wear knockoff jerseys, and social media pages are either inactive or barely managed. Without a strong brand, clubs can't attract big sponsors. Without big sponsors, the quality of the game suffers. It's not all gloom. There are glimpses of hope. Grassroots tournaments like Chapadimba and personalities like Eliud Kipchoge have shown what's possible when storytelling meets strategy. Kenya Sevens Rugby once enjoyed global fame, not just for winning, but for how the team was branded. Ask someone on the street to name a local football team, and many will pause unsure. Yet they'll quickly mention Arsenal, Real Madrid, or PSG without blinking. It's not that we lack teams or talent, it's that our own haven't been given the spotlight they deserve. When clubs aren't consistently marketed or visible to the public, it becomes harder for the fans to connect, support, or even know they exist. So what's missing in football? A long-term marketing plan, youth engagement, modern match stores, clean stadiums, and investment in social media branding, not just for clubs, but for players too.
Now the ball in. Great lead! And a terrific save from the keeper. Xerxes actually didn't.
In Kenya, the passion is there. The fans are ready. But for football to grow, the game off the pitch needs as much strategy as the one on it. From proper sponsorship deals to online branding, merchandising, and fan engagement. The time has come to market our own game like champions.
Oh, sweet feet.
All right. Now, welcome back. We've just had an interesting conversation that was before the feature that we just had on the struggles of football teams, what football teams are facing or the football players are facing in terms of marketing themselves and ensuring that they sustain themselves in the world of, and as far as the business of sports is concerned. So that is what was happening on your screens in a few minutes. Right about now, we want to take a look at what is shaping our world of news. This is from politics to governance, to education, to health, and to sports. But before that, let's get a bumper. Now, this morning, we're beginning you with the millionaires in town, the news of the new millionaires in town, where President William Ruto, together with Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Vuria and head coach Benny McCarthy, hailed the Harambee Stars for uniting the nation following the victories and qualification for the CHAN 2024 knockout stages. He assured players of rewards for upcoming matches, that is of 2.5 million and 1 million plus a 2-bedroom affordable housing unit for quarter-final triumph.
This team can continue to grow and be the inspiration that they are, and every time they go onto that field, that they show a lot of bravery and a lot of courage and becoming the new heroes and the new icons of the youth of today by setting the example that you do. So thank you again, boys, for everything you've done thus far, and we are only still in the group stages. One more game to go, and then we go on.
All Kenyans were saying this is the group of death. And everybody thought that Harambee Stars was not going to reach anywhere. And we kept saying it's not a group of death, it is the group of opportunity for Kenya to shine.
We've not only hosted CHAN today, a historic achievement for our nation, but our boys are making us very proud. You guys are making our nation very proud. Mukipita quarters, hapo unapata milioni moja yako na affordable house 2-bedroom.
Now, leaders from across government, financiers, investors, private sector, and development partners convened at Nairobi's Serena Hotel for a high-level forum aimed at accelerating Kenya's infrastructure transformation through innovative, sustainable, and impact-driven collaboration for national growth. Pauletta Koth with the full report.
Progresses made during the Public-Private Partnerships Symposium held today at Serena Hotel in Nairobi. Principal Secretary for the National Treasury, Dr. Chris Kipto, opened the session by outlining progresses made in strengthening PPP frameworks. He noted that over the past decade, Kenya has developed robust policies to attract private sector efficiency, reduce fiscal pressure, and deliver high-quality public services.
It's a time when we are facing as a country, the last budget that was read, it was a 4.3 trillion. And you saw the number that we expect as revenues, about 3.4 trillion.
So in this way, PPP is not merely a financial tool, but a catalyst for sustainable development, allowing us to build modern, resilient infrastructure for current and future generations.
Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, John Mbadi, underscored infrastructure as the backbone of economic growth, emphasizing PPP as a pathway to debt-free development. He revealed that the government is targeting 293.6 billion for PPP projects in the 2025-2026 financial year.
Affordable housing units are cross-subsidized with 200 market rate units in Athi River. That is number one. Number two, 3,000 capacity tuition facility and accommodation facility for 800 students at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hostel in Eldoret. 3, 4,000 bed capacity student hostels for the University of Nairobi's main campus. 4, 2,000 bed capacity hostel for Pwani Teaching and Referral Hostel in Kilifi. It is my desire to see full participation of Kenyans in these projects, and I do believe we have the capacity to finance, build, operate, and maintain these projects using local resources.
Roads and Transport Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir highlighted major opportunities in different sectors such as transport and energy, urging investors to partner with government in delivering trade-enhancing infrastructure without burdening public finances.
Space, we've had so much debate, but we are making another go very shortly to build for you guys a new airport so that we really become that anchor state that basically attracts, and when you come in, you feel good.
That our banking sector, that the financial sector, they have started reducing interest rates to make resources available to the private sector to be able to invest.
Currently, PPP projects worth 123.1 billion are operational with bids underway for developments, including the proposed Pwani Hospital. By fostering partnerships that deliver inclusive benefits, the symposium reinforced the government's commitment to mobilizing private capital and accelerating infrastructure delivery for Kenya's social and economic transformation. Paulette Akoeth, KUTV, Nairobi.
Now, thank you, Paulette. In public-private partnerships, the government expects, the government targets 293 billion Kenyan shillings, and the focus is investors are urged to venture in highways, hospitals, and urban development. It's a conversation that we have been having as a country, from Adani deals to, moving all forward, where public facilities or amenities are given to be run by private sectors. So that is a conversation that we'll be also asking my panelists this morning on their views on the current proposal to have public-private partnerships integrated in various key sectors of this country, that is from the health facilities to education to transport all the way to development. Now, moving on to other stories this morning, we have the Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi commissioned a new classroom and water project at Mudiawari Primary School in Funyulu in Busia County, highlighting the government importance in education and health to the community. Mudavadi praised local efforts, urging the community care, and emphasized on collaboration for sustainable development and improved living standards.
During the commissioning of the classroom and water project at Funyulu in Busia County, Musalia Mudavadi emphasized the significance of these developments in transforming the local community. Musalia praised the efforts of the county government and partners involved in realizing these projects, stressing that such investments directly improve the lives of residents, especially children. He noted that the new classroom would provide a conducive learning environment, encouraging higher enrollment and reducing dropout rates. Musalia also underlined the importance of clean and accessible water in promoting health and hygiene, which are critical for the well-being of school children and the entire community.
Between the relevant government ministry and a well-managed constituency development fund. This project will significantly ease congestion, improve the learning environment, and certainly enhance the academic quality and performance of our students. I'm really happy to note that the city has also funded the school's water project, which will not only serve the growing student population, but also...
Furthermore, Mudavadi called on the residents to take care of these facilities, urging them to work together to maintain and protect the infrastructure for future generations, stressing that the government alone cannot achieve the developments, but also community participation is vital.
Hiyo si kujenga taifa la Kenya. Kwa hivyo tukae pamoja, tujenge taifa letu. Let us be committed to this country. Na mimi nataka niseme kwamba tutazidi kuzungumza na ndugu zetu wa Uganda, tutafuatilia that program na tunaifata so that we can open up the trade properly.
Additionally, Mudavadi reiterated his commitment to support initiatives that uplift rural areas like Funyulu, pledging partnership with local leaders to ensure sustainable progress and improved living standards in Busia County.
Na hapa Busia, ile program sio tu ya Nasewa ambayo imetajwa, hata mambo ya affordable housing, kuna projects ambazo zimeanza kidogo kidogo, tunataka ziongezeke. Kama zile ziko hapa Funyula, about 945 units which are supposed to be built. kuna zengine 1,000 units in different areas, 1,000 paka zinaenda katika kila county. Hizi housing units ambazo
The Prime Cabinet urged community ownership of the project, stressing that collaboration between government and residents is essential for lasting development, improving quality of life in Funyulu and across Busia County. Glory Kadure, KUTV, Nairobi.
Now, if you're in Kenya, you know what is happening in the country in as far as these development tours are concerned and empowerment programs in grassroots levels are concerned. At the moment, politicians or analysts say that Musalia Mudavadi is expected to showcase his abilities with the upcoming Malava constituency by-elections. And probably this is the reason why we have seen him so many times in Western region. We've seen several projects launch, and something that I was asking myself yesterday as I was looking at the news. Students are home, learners are home. But if you look at this, it's like the learners were told, you know what, put on your uniforms and come for this project. So it's so many questions for me as a person, if this is really targeting the locals and these developments are really targeting the locals. Of course, it's a good move. It's very important for development to be taken to grassroots. But why is it happening only when we have by-elections upcoming, we have elections upcoming? Why at those particular times? Now, moving on to a different story, is the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, John Mbadi, reiterated the government's commitment to compensating individuals who were injured or lost their lives during recent demonstrations. Mbadi made these remarks amid complaints from the opposition who are piling up pressure on the government to give compensation.
The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, John Mbadi, announced that the government would compensate all individuals injured during demonstrations between 2017 and 2025, as well as the families of those who lost their lives. According to the Cabinet Secretary, he emphasized that every Kenyan who suffered loss of life or damage to property during demonstrations had a constitutional right to compensation.
The President, together with the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, have sat down and have agreed that one of the conditions for working together is to make sure that those who lost their loved ones and those who were maimed must be compensated. And the President has said publicly and announced loudly that we are going to do a first one in 120 days. Compensation for people who have suffered.
While responding to opposition concerns over funding, Mbadi cited the Article 223 of the Constitution, which empowered the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to allocate funds in urgent circumstances.
The leaders of opposition, led by Kalonzo Musyoka, criticizing something which is the first in Africa. We have had challenges. People have lost their lives during demonstrations, and it did not start with this government. Article 223 gives the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, who is myself, the power to allocate funds if a need has arisen. So please, Mheshimiwa Kalonzo, stop questioning where money will come from. I have that power given by the Constitution.
The Cabinet Secretary further clarified that the compensation program would also cover police officers who got injured or killed while performing their duties to maintain law and order during the protests. He added that the process will be overseen by the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, led by human rights advocate Professor Makau Mutua.
There are also police officers who have been injured. Some have been killed also. When they are trying to maintain law and order, something must be done. We must bring reconciliation in this country. For us as a government, we are going to make money available under the leadership of Makau Mutua, a known human rights advocate.
Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi's announcement underscores the government's unwavering commitment to justice and reconciliation by ensuring fair compensation for all those affected by demonstrations. Glory Kadure, KUTV, Nairobi.
All right, interesting times to be a Kenyan. One time we are saying the government should compensate those who are victims of protest. The next time we are saying hiyo pesa inatoka wapi when the government finally says we are going to compensate. Now, that is also something interesting to be looking up to get views or what our panelists are thinking about the same, and they're already here in studio. So moving on, Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Kipchumba Murkomen, has reiterated the government's commitment to strengthening citizen registration services across the country with a special focus on pastoralist and expansive counties such as Narok. Speaking at the Jukwaa la Usalama conference in Narok, Murkomen announced that the administration is working to ensure every sub-county has a fully operational citizen registration office. These offices will oversee key services including birth and death registration and the processing of national identification cards through the National Registration Bureau. On former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's recent remarks in the United States, Murkomen issued a stern warning, saying Gachagua will be held accountable for any misleading statements.
It is laughable that a citizen of the Republic of Kenya who is seeking high office is telling the citizens of this country would rather appear before a senate of another country than his own country. We are not stupid people. We are looking through. You can see through his hypocrisy, but we will insist. We are continuing to insist that any citizen of this republic who makes such heavy allegations and who thinks that they are doing so for the good of the country, they are obligated to put that in writing. And and when I say that they should record a statement, it doesn't mean that the National Police Service is not independent. I am just restating what is in the law. It behooves every citizen of this republic to carry out themselves in a manner that is patriotic and in a way that they can be considered responsible to their Chapter 10 provisions of national values and principles of governance. It is very unfortunate that a person who is seeking public office and who has held a very high office is propagating lies and campaigning against our own country, speaking ill of our nation.
Now, moving on, President William Ruto today met with delegates from California, the richest state in the United States, to explore partnerships in innovation, sustainability, and shared prosperity. The president noted that Kenya and the U.S. have enjoyed long-standing ties, strengthened by Kenya's Silicon Savannah and California's leadership in technology and climate innovation, as well as Kenya's dynamic, youthful, and highly skilled workforce. Highlighting Kenya's leadership in climate action, President Ruto pointed out that the country operates on a 93% renewable energy grid with plans to reach 100% by 2030 and generate 100 gigawatts by 2040. The delegation, led by California State Secretary of Transportation Talks, Omishakin, included state secretaries and corporate sector representatives.
I believe that the expertise that have been built over many years in California with your technology companies can be laced and infused with African experience. And the young men and women we have in our country that have ideas, they have passion around technology, and they have immense to contribute into that space. So your coming here is a great expression of friendship. It is a moment for us to take our engagements to a whole new level.
Kenya, as you know, sir, remains central to our U.S.-Africa policy. When we do something in Africa, we do it in Kenya first. And there's a reason for that. It's because of our shared interests and alignment on governance, on rule of law, and democracy.
All right, now let's get a response from former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who once again vehemently condemned President William Ruto's administration during a meeting with the Kenyan diaspora in Anaheim, California. He accused the government elected in 2022 of brutally turning against young people by perpetrating widespread human rights abuses and systemic corruption.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua revealed that between 2024 and 2025, hundreds of youths aged 14 to 24 have been abducted, tortured, killed, or forcibly disappeared in an unprecedented situation in Kenya's history. He noted that even during colonial times, children and women were not targeted. Interior Ministry allegedly issued unconstitutional shoot-to-kill orders against protesters, with the president endorsing police violence that includes shooting youths in the legs and imprisoning them after hospital treatment.
Brutal as they were, they never attacked children. Even the difficult years of the Moi rule of 24 years, that government by President Moi persecuted men. They never touched children and women.
These abuses led to the breakdown of Gachagua's political alliance with Ruto. After a crackdown on youth protesters on June 25, 2024, Gachagua fled to Mombasa and publicly denounced the government's actions. He further claimed that Ruto mobilized resources and bribed parliament and senate members to orchestrate his removal from office. Gachagua highlighted the Cousin movement uniting communities such as Mulembe, Kamba, Kisii, Mijikenda, and Taita in opposition to abduction and extrajudicial killings. He accused opposition leader Raila Odinga of exploiting these communities with false promises during elections.
Brutal as the colonial government was, but very brutal. This Cousin movement is the greatest thing to have ever happened in Kenya, because our cousins have been misused by Raila for a long time. Long time.
On governance, Gachagua criticized healthcare reforms, replacing NHIF with the costly and ineffective SHA and SHIF schemes, forcing civil servants to pay upfront for medical care. He lamented the dismantling of free primary education and alleged diversion of funds through the National Intelligence Service for political bribery. Citing a political rally in Kisii that deployed 16 helicopters, he underscored the misuse of state resources. He also noted that the economy has stalled and health has been sidelined.
It was struggling, but it was working. At least you could go to a mission hospital, get treated, and NHIF in one way or another will sort you out to a certain extent, and you are struggling with a small percentage. So what we needed to do was improve on NHIF. And all we needed was 800 million Kenya shillings to reform the system and make it working. Instead, William Ruto threw it out, brought another system, another animal called SHA and SHIF, at a cost of 104 billion Kenya shillings to replace NHIF, and it is not working, and that money has been stolen.
He called on Kenyans at home and abroad to unite against abductions, killings, corruptions, and to demand accountability and constitutional governance. Glory Kadhure, KUTV, Nairobi.
All right, now that is on the newspaper review, the news updates this morning. Various stories that we've had over there, and I promise that we'll get sentiments from our panelists here in studio who are already with us in studio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. As much as our viewers know you, there might be that one new viewer who does not know you, so I'll allow you to introduce yourself to our viewers. Let me begin you, Joe.
I consider everyone else who knows us from this platform a community, a family. I've noticed that out there we've created a community of people who are always glued kusikia leo kuna nini kwa newspaper review. I've come to appreciate that not all Kenyans buy this newspaper, but they appreciate the kind of review we do by kupitia haya magazeti. So for that reason, I'm grateful and honored to be here this morning. I'm still Ojwang, mtoto wa Mariam, Senior Warrant Officer 1, au Lieutenant Kanali. Ukiingia pale kwa community, they'll tell you that Ojwang ni Mkenya, Kenya naye, lakini Ukenya wake si Ukenya Kenya.
All right.
Thank you very much. My name is Fendo Godwin, aka Fendoman, and it's a very great time to be here, a great pleasure to be here. As my friend has said, newspaper review is one of the things that is considered most, and by most people, especially from other counties like Kakamega, they're viewers of this channel, and they keep applauding this show for the good work that we do in the in-depth analysis of the newspapers. Yeah.
Thank you so much, our viewers, for helping us move this, because we couldn't be here if it were not for them.
Exactly.
Kama si wao, sisi hatupo.
Tukisema mambo ya TV host, bro was always reminding us that don't worry. Unajua live stream zetu sasa hivi tunaweza pata iko na watu wawili watano. Don't worry. Huyo mmoja mwenye ako glued hapo on screen. That purpose must be served to huyo mmoja.
Yeah, exactly.
Asanteni sana kwa fans.
Exactly. Now let's get straight into business. We begin with. Should we begin with the bold newspaper? Let's begin with the bold newspaper, that is the Standard. And the Standard are talking about a scandal shielding Lagat's. Several faces presented there on the front page, and they are saying 20 Kenyans have moved to court accusing President William Ruto, top security chiefs, and the Attorney General of shielding Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat from murder charges over the death of whistleblower Alberto Juang, alleging a high-level cover-up, fabricated suicide theory, and a justice system stacked in favor of the powerful. We're beginning on that note. Let me begin from you, Fendo. We have seen a country, a state where someone says, and a politician says that, you have freedom of rights, but then kuna mahali ukifika, your rights don't apply. These rights only apply to those with power. Is this something that you also share?
So I don't believe in that. I'm one person who advocates for constitutionalism. Such sentiment eras back to the days when Idi Amin was in power. He said that you can run faster, but you cannot run faster than a bullet. And sometimes people say that yes, you have the freedom of expression, but you cannot have afterwards. You will not have expression after, something like that. So to me, I believe the constitution is there. It's a living document, and whatever time it takes, it will just catch up with you. History has told us, and history has shown to us that the individuals who are castigating during the 2007 elections, the people are saying that let's go and announce the president. Let's hurry up. I think it was a certain person who is also trying to get the presidency right now. Said let's go and swear in this Mwai Kibaki, and they went and swore him at night. Then Ruto was in the opposition brigade. He was crying and telling. I remember Pastor Pius Mwiro told the Congress that let's pray, and he said, why are we praying and the elections have been stolen? That was Ruto then. They were crying. Right now you can see the constitution has revolved and has grown, and the person then, the then Minister of Justice Martha Karua, is now crying that we need to reform things to this. So I find it that you should respect the constitution under whatever capacity that you are, because it's the one that will vindicate you or make you good. So I don't believe that. As long as the constitution says that, we need to follow it to the latter. And the courts have been coming out boldly by sometimes even pushing down some bills that have been passed by parliament and constitution. So I believe the best president in this country is one that follows the constitution and will be respected for that, because it's the only document that can be able to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich, and even ensure that somebody is there is protected, because even the president himself, the chief justice, and anybody, that they are courtesy of the constitution. It is the constitution that protects them, nobody else. Otherwise the one-term movement could have won, but it's the constitution that kept him there. So I don't think anybody should grow the powers to outgrow the constitution. The constitution is like our Bible. We should live under it. Yeah.
But is it really something that we are following? Because it looks like it is a case where we are preaching water, but we are taking wine. We are constantly saying that we should follow the constitution, this and this. But then the rule of law, if we look keenly, it affects those people. Let me use the have-nots for lack of a better word. Unless, if you're someone powerful, it's unless maybe you contradicted the government and the government has now set you up. I wouldn't give names, because we've seen top leaders who something happened, they went astray, and all of a sudden EACC is on them, all of a sudden they're in prison. So it's something that we only see it happening by word of mouth. Unless you have wronged the government, it is something that we are not seeing at the moment. So is it true that this is actually something that we as a country are really looking up to it, or it's just something that it is imaginary, if for lack of a better word?
So I think, one, I'll begin by saying that Kenya has one of the best constitution ever in the world. most scholars have read this constitution and saying that it's one of the best. The problem comes in the implementation, and there's some legal gaps. Sometimes you can weaponize it to fight a certain person, and sometimes you might use it maybe for your own advantage. For instance, we have key bodies, key government bodies, but you sometimes find somebody weaponizing them for their own benefit, whether to keep power or something like that. So it calls upon that not only should we say that we have the Constitution of Kenya, but we must also push forward to see that it is being implemented. Because if this constitution now is implemented, and you know it is a sleeping document, it's us, the people, that we must give it power. And who gives these people this constitution power? The NGOs. You find that something wrong has happened and the people run to court. There are some things that you know, maybe you are right of media to air some occurrences that were going on. You find that the government came and put off. So how do we now come and see to it that the constitution is followed? Because the constitution all depends on this and spells out this. You can go to court. So it is upon the journalists, the media personnel, and the scholars in the country and the activists to ensure that it is implemented to the latter. And thank God that we had a president who gave people education, and that was Mwai Kibaki. You can read and know that this one is unconstitutional, this one is constitutional. And you have a right as a citizen, especially under Bill of Rights, if it is infringed. That calls for right to education, right to life. They are all in chapter 4. Chapter 4, yeah. So you can go there even as an individual and it will be prioritized as a matter of urgency. So it's upon any individual to stand up and fight. And I've been liking this because you can see somebody even selling eggs in town. You go and try to harass him and say that the constitution does not say that. Thank God that we had a president who equipped Kenyans with knowledge. Right now you can even decide to demonstrate alone to whichever office you want because the constitution guarantees you. So it is upon us as Kenyans now to ensure that the good constitution is there, but now to ensure that it is implemented to the latter, and nobody else but ourselves will be able to do this. And I couple this with the Bob Marley's words that nobody but ourselves can emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. So is the constitutional follow-ups and implementations of the citizen or by the country, and it will serve to our benefit.
All right. Now, Ojwang, you're in record on this show, and probably rise to attend Culture Monday for saying that, you know, the problem with this country is the people elected who elect the leaders in office. And for the longest time, we've seen leaders come in and go out. We've seen the justice system favor these people. But then, is it really fair to say that the only people to blame in this whole mess is the voters? Because we don't elect those people in the judiciary, we don't elect those people in EACC, we don't elect human rights groups, we don't elect all these groups. We just elect our political leaders, who sometimes we may not be able to term them. We don't elect the Inspector General of Police. It is something that by default we just find them there, or they're elected by someone else. So how then, or is it something that we should be blaming someone, or where should we shift our focus to ensure that we actually have tangible outcomes?
We cannot keep on blaming each other. What we can keep doing is learning, because one thing has always been clear, that things come, things go, but Kenya remains. Always. This constitution that Fendo is saying is a living proof, is a living document. I can prove how it's a living document. From when our heroes went to Lancaster, they documented something that looked or resembled the mother UK, who were our colonizers then. That document came to Kenya. We had powerful people who helped us, including people like Jomo Kenyatta, the likes of Kongo Karomba, those who were taken somewhere for six years for them to be detained. When they came, we got a republic in 1964. These people still died. Kenya remained. There came another generation of people who defended the rights of the citizens of Kenya, including J.M. Kariuki, who said that we cannot be living in a country 10 million beggars and 10 millionaires. Such sentiments of social justices did not prevent such kind of people from dying. But our country, Kenya, remained and a constitution remained. It's a document that has continued to evolve on itself. Sometimes inauliwa, sometimes inarudi. In 2005 Wakenya waliikataa, wakasema hapana, that document sisi hatuitaki. In 2010 they promulgated now a document that they felt is better. If you look at the standard, those who are shielding Lagat according to the standard, one of them was the one leading the no campaign against the 2010 constitution. The current president, William Ruto, he was leading the green. Is it the green? Was red for?
It was banana and
No, 2010. Red and green. For those who wanted the constitution 2010, that way. So he was saying, no, we don't want this constitution. But 12 years later, he becomes the custodian of that same constitution. In his inauguration, when he was being sworn in, he lifted the sword in more time than the Bible. But he also promised, when I put this Bible down, this constitution will work. Because this is a living document. Fendo said that it is like our Bible. No. Our constitution is way above our Bible. Because we as a country of Kenya, we are a no-state religion. That is why in this country we have the Islamic community. That is why in this country we have the Rastafarian community. That is why in this country we have the Hindu community. Na wengine wengi wenye wako. Kwa nini? Because our constitution is above these religions. One day, one time, I've heard people who are from Islamic community campaign, people like Joho, saying that if I was able to get a D and become a governor, then I can become a president one day, one time. If he becomes a president, it means he will not be using the Bible. He will be using the Quran. But the constitution will still stand because the chief Qadi of this country also operates under the same constitution. The constitution is working, ma'am. And it's working right. Right now, we have 20 people who have taken cases to the court or the judiciary, challenging how the government is shielding DIG Lagat. When Albert Ojwang died in prison, died in police right here at Nairobi Central, he stepped aside. And people said, this is a ploy. Stepping aside, and we are talking about resign. Watu wakaingiza mpaka civic education hapo hivyo. People were interested with knowing what happens when you step aside vis-a-vis what happens when you resign. Kidogo, he crawled back to office. And now, people like the current AG, Madam Dorcas Odur, think Kenyans are foolish. The IPOA chair, the former IEEC chair, Isaac Hassan, thinks we are fools. You can see the DCI Amin there. Hata yeye amini vile sisi tunabeba ufala, and then the biggest perpetrator there is not happy at all. Today, the country is still in celebratory mood of Kenya winning against Morocco. But the face of him that is there is not of someone who is celebrating. That is why the government is spending a lot of money to us. Unajua Gen Z na millennials tunapenda happy. Saa hizi wacha Ruto, hata Ruto ni mbaya, si ndio? Akikuja aanguke hapa hivi na ndege na achedo, sote tutafloka hapo hivyo. Kwa nini? Sisi vijana tunapenda vitu nzuri. So they are using a lot of money to woo people and lie to others. Saizi kunaenda kukaa vibaya sana. People wanasema mimi lazima ninunue ticket ya Zambia, ya game ya Zambia na Kenya, lakini hakuna ticket. What will we do? And they've even started saying sasa inabidi tuweke ma screens huko nje. Kwa sababu ya nini? Ikiwa gava inanunua tiketi zote, ipe loyalists. Wale ambao hawako kwa list ya gava hawata attend games za country yao. The constitution hii bado ndio itatusaidia juu watu wanaingia kotini, vitu zinakuwa challenged na constitution bado ina rise.
All right. Just to mention, in line with that, the tickets are now on. Yesterday we had a report that they were halted due to security breaches. Right now you can purchase your tickets.
By the time we are ending this show, we will have tried to purchase one.
All right. Now, still on the same note, dealing with the police, and deaths in police custody. On page 10 of the Standard, we have a story on torture in prison. Still under wraps, rights defenders warn that torture, injury, and deaths in prison are routinely concealed. They're now calling for full accountability, independent oversight, and urgent reforms. That story is on page 10. Page 10. The story that we've just given you sentiments is on page 6. Now, still on the police, I want us to move away from the police story and move to other stories. If you look at the Daily Nation, we have misunderstanding on who to chair or who to head the hearing, the upcoming hiring of 10,000 police officers. Constitutionally, Inspector General of Police is allowed to oversee that process of hiring, promotions, and all that. But we have the HR wanasema hapana, hiyo ni kazi yetu. We've also, I don't want to insinuate, I've had of complaints of the head of state micromanaging departments in the country. So we have like a micromanagement crisis in our country. We want all powers directed to one direction or one source. We've also seen a situation, I think it's on the Standard, where the members of parliament are really they're making noise. Yes, it's on the Daily Nation. That is on page 6, where MPs' rift grows over bill on Senate's expanded powers. So we have, it's like a fight of power. Every department is seeking to have more powers. We have the Senate, we have the executive, we have the IG, we have different sectors in the country. Where do you think this is landing us as a country? Let me begin with you.
I think it is just landing us into many and several confusions. And this hiring process, as Kenyans, you all know it is a multi-million shilling sort of business. It might even be a multi-billion shillings, because people bribe a lot of money to go there, and some have even swindled. So this struggles here could not be just that somebody wants to hire the best or something like that. Somebody wants to fill their own people there to take the lion's share. But all said and done, I think more than the conflicts between person A and person B, it doesn't matter if the cat is it doesn't matter whether the cat is black or brown, as long as it can catch the mouse. And what I'm trying to say here is that they need to see that the police who are being recruited there, under whichever capacity, they are the ones now are not trigger happy, because that's the thing that have really drilled the image of the police department. And as a person of public image, I think now it's time to see to the qualifications of the police that are going there. And we should be arguing over issues such as, what are the qualifications? Because right now I don't think the police are going to encounter people who are going to run or, to count number of teeth to see, if you can, I don't know if they're going to bite criminals or something like that. We need to see to it that we are going to see that people can come and you can reason out with a criminal or with anybody. Because right now, a lot of cases that are going there to the police station, if you are arrested by a police, you can be sure that the chances of you beating them in case is quite high, because they will be flaunts of a lot of constitutional rights and issues, and it's not a power struggle issue or something like that. So I think we should really focus on more on qualifications. How should a police officer in the modern day era be like? Criminals nowadays are in cybersecurity, they're on computers, but you come and a police officer is there, cannot be able to understand and comprehend this issue. We even need to put even the grades to at least go higher kidogo, have a degree, have some computer skills, proper computer skills, to be able to handle the digital criminals, to be able to handle these educated but unemployed youth, to be able to handle an educated criminal, and something like that. And therefore, to this, I think with the media, I like to maybe really recall it off in a little bit, that we really need to deal with an issue and not the vitina that this one should be the hiring person and this one should not be the hiring person. And that's my analysis or my 2-cent comment on that.
All right. Is it a power struggle, John?
Whether it's a power struggle or not, Sahizi, I feel it's a good thing. You know why? The Constitution gives the president a lot of powers, but it also gives the same president powers to delegate. Ndo asifanye kila kitu. The president cannot represent the government or himself in court, so anaachia AG afanye hiyo kazi. The president cannot investigate the criminality that is happening in the country, so anaachia DCI na jamaa anaitwa Amin. But these people wenye wanaachiwa hawana hizo powers. Why? Because
I want you to be a TV host, but I also want to sit there ndo niangalie vile una host. That cannot happen. I want you to be IPOA chairperson. And this person given the chance to be chair IPOA was in an office of controversy. 2017, he was the chair of the then IEC, Interim Electoral, and it was not IEBC. He was the chair. So anakuja tena in limelight kwa kitu very key. Since the Interim Police Oversight Authority was created so that the police and the people can be one. Ndio tuache, ndo polisi akuwe polisi, aache kuangaliwa ati anakimbia sana. Aangaliwe ataka reasoning kiasi. Why? You will be charged with the mandate of maintaining law and order. Do you understand this law? Are you orderly yourself? Because a lot of unlawlessness inafanyika na polisi. Ask me why. I've been involved as a community mediator. Kuingia Karao kujaribu kumaliza kesi ya watu wa Nduthi. Aje, wewe mtu wa Nduthi mmepigana na huyu mtu wa Nduthi. Wewe umechochwa na watu wako waende uchukue P3. Si P3 lazima utapitia kwa polisi. Utamhonga. Na huyu polisi anaelewa wewe uelewi civic education, wewe uelewi sheria, so ataanza kukudanganya vile atakusaidia ushinde huyu mwingine. But kwa stage you two are friends, then wewe na wewe unaingia the same police station. Unaandikisha yako. Na si kila mtu ameumia. Kila mtu atapewa P3. And then hizi cases zikishafika kwa Director of Public Prosecution ama ODPP, zitaanza kupanda pole pole. Hawa watarudi kwa community, kila mtu endelee kubeba Nduthi kwao, na ule polisi ataendelea kukuta huyu peke yake. Leta kakitu kesi yako na skuma. Anakuta huyu mwingine, leta kakitu na skuma. But haskumi, si ndio? One day, one time, hizo kesi zote zinapatana. Zina files zinaanza kurudi. Ati tuko Kiwanja police station, wewe unahitajika kotini. Huyu na yeye akona yake, wewe unahitajika kotini. What kind of a case is that? If these police were enlightened on law and order, hakungekuwa mahali watu wanaandika P3 mara mbili ati ndio ukue king ukula kule hongo. Si ndio? Hii constitution bado ndio itatusaidia kupunguza vitu kama hivyo ama kuondoa vitu kama hivyo, so that hii process ikuwe competitive. Juu saizi hata DIG like that hafai kuwa ofisi. He has a case involving someone who is dead, Albert Ojwang. The IPOA is shielding him. How is he then still going to chair kuleta polisi wengine hapa hivi? What will he do? He will clear and forward. Huyu unajua kiingia hapa hivi ni mnoma sana mambo ya investigation. Anaweza ingia DCI aanze kuinvestigate kesi yangu. So huyo aende. Huyu mwingine ni fala lakini akismile akona meno ya white 32. Sasa amesema ajui kazi ya meno ni gani. Wacha huyu waingie juu yeye hata investigate sana. Why are we giving him the mandate to give us other police officers when yet he himself as a DIG has failed on that mandate? Hii ingine ya kuleta polisi ndio itawezekana.
All right. Let's leave it at that. Now, moving on to the health sector or allegations. This is in regards to health. That is, as far as the health insurance is concerned. On the Daily Nation, we have 8 billion claims for civil servants. Tutors probe where senators petitions House to investigate unpaid health insurance claims for families of public servants who died or were injured while on duty. That story is on page 6. And we also have another story on health where cancer patient now rounds out of life-saving drugs, and that is Gatamu Waigwa took his final dose of life-saving cancer medication yesterday. The 70-year-old retired
anesthesia.
That one. Now faces an uncertain future without a comprehensive deal with the social health authority. Oh my God, my tribe showing up.
Your lines like Kikwetu is coming out.
Unapologetically. Now we have complaints of the social health authority. At the same time, we have the government saying that the social health authority is working. Last week, we saw Health Cabinet Secretary Eden Duale offer a directive that several hospitals be closed because they were involved in fraud. and that is in relation to having ghost patients, having information given for compensation that really didn't happen. And we've also had situations where we have ghost hospitals. Someone is working with a hospital kwa kitabu, so yeye anaitisha compensation, and nothing is really going on. And we saw the directive given that the monies should be returned after investigation is completed, and the doctors who were involved in that also will pay the country for that. And several probe into the Social Health Authority. We've also seen former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying that, you know, this SHA thing, we were just to improve the NHIF, but now we spend more money to build this Social Health Authority. We've also had the president, I'm just giving you an overview of what is happening around the Social Health Authority. The deputy, not the deputy president, President William Ruto, in every meeting that he goes, he encourages the public to register as for the Social Health Authority. We have one side complaining that, you know what, SHA is not working. Another side saying that, you know what, give government time. SHA is working. It's not perfect, but it's working. From where you sit, and all these complaints that we are seeing concerning the Social Health Authority or the current funding, we've had claims that are not paid. From where you sit, Fendo, should we be concerned as a country on our health insurance?
Yes, sorry for this. I think we should be very much concerned about the health issue, because a lot of Harambes that have been happening is they have all been about health issues, and probably issues like cancer. We've managed to see individuals, and cancer can, you know, drain you financially to become like a church mouse. You find like somebody has a fleet of you know, plots, rental houses, matatus, and good large sum of land. But this person, a mere cancer disease can drain you to until you become a beggar that you can no longer, and at the end of the day, you go and die. But I think the issue of SHA and NHIF has been politicized, because now it depends with what, when somebody's talking, is where has he eaten from? Is he eating from the government? If you're eating from the government, you're saying it's SHA. If you are in opposition and wanting to fight to say NHIF was better. And it has been politicized, and that's the problem with several Kenyans. But the key issue here with the NHIF and the SHA is that the NHIF had a lot of loopholes, that people are looting money from the government, faking the papers. You go to a hospital with a mere headache, they just tell you sign to HAPA, but if you try to read it, you find that they have, you know, added some diseases, some illness, just to swindle the government. So I think it was a plan that when the government was intended to move from NHIF to SHA, to at least try and control those ghost hospitals and things like those ones. Right now, if even in county government, if you just say that ghost workers, there are several. So it was the hospital issues. So from my own side, I think SHA is an improvement from the NHIF, but because of politics, will come and cloud our minds that this thing is not working. But there are a lot of people who have benefited from it as a result of, you know, digitalization, as a result of even these hospitals that are being tracked to be in you know, in engaging in unethical behaviors. It's because some of the measures there, they are making it hard for them to, you know, to steal from them. If you have worked in a political office, let's say a governor's office, you will see tons of lines. For instance, in my offices, some of my county government, you are allowed to see your leaders maybe on Monday or a particular day. So when you go there and see a line there, that it's a lot of people with papers to go to hospital, Arambes, calling on politicians to do those things. That one, and religion, to build churches. We need to build church here, to need to build church there. And another one, hospital bills. So it is a serious issue that if implemented properly, and we do away with politics and see to it, how can we all come together, put our political difference aside and see to it that SHA is working? Because either way, they always say that when you're growing rich, also pray to have good health.
Good health.
Because if you don't have good health, all your money will go back to the hospitals. And hospitals have grown rich in India and all those countries. This medication for cancer, and sometimes they even say that, you know, the international corporations can just create some ailment to benefit from. So it's a multi-million industry. Yes. But to me, I think SHA is something that we as Kenyans should not object to everything. We should see to it that it's working, and even come up with ideas to see to it that it's working, because this is also another issue that we should not politicize with it or joke with it with some half-baked information and just some opinion somewhere because we see some political kingpins or others, so to say, saying that this thing is bad because they have read, and these people have not even read. It's because of political interests.
All right.
But I think it's a good move for the country and for the Kenyan people.
Yeah. Objective in making our objections.
Yeah.
That is very correct.
It is 40. The number of hospitals the current CS for health has flagged, private hospitals, concerning SHA and all this. I've always been a voice of ghetto, but sometimes I feel like I don't do it enough. Especially now that we are talking about SHA and what is happening at the community level. Yesterday, with my producer, Ryan Kure, we were somewhere, and I was given a very personal call about SHA. Right now, as we are talking about you register for SHA to work, there's a whole multitude of communities in the slums of Kenya who cannot afford the minimum 6,000 for you to be registered in SHA right now. When I was registering for NHIF after turning 18, you just needed 500 so that they can now be deducting 500 monthly. Right now, they are demanding for you to register. You either pay for the whole 12 months or 6 months, which is 6,000. And you have a case of someone who has gone to a level 5 hospital. If you've passed level 1 all the way to level 5, it means your case is very serious. You need to do very serious medical tests after paying the 6,000. But you're coming from a slum somewhere, could be Mathare, could be Kibera, could be Majengo in Nyeri, like in this case. You've not eaten, but you've been told for us to register you in Social Health Authority, you need 6,000. And they'll call the sons and daughters who are back in the capital. Who are they? They are us, a group of people from the university who are struggling to get jobs. And like in yesterday's Daily Nation was saying, that fat bribes are needed for you to get a job. Fendo today has said that hiring process in Kenya is a multi-billion project. Why? Because these people who don't have anything in their pockets and are struggling to get a job so that they can be breadwinners are required to get 50,000 ndio wapate jobs. Are required to get 6,000 ndio wapate kuregister as SHA. If they will manage to get that, then it only means that Kenya is not a poor country. We are just having mismanagement of funds. We are just having a crop of politicians with no goodwill. If we can have money today to compensate victims of police brutality during protests, why didn't we compensate them in 2017, 2018, for those in 2023 and 2024? We have money as a country.
All right.
Right now, we have money. In fact, money is set that if we go, Kenya, Harambee Stars goes to face Zambia at the Kasarani, and Zambia cries just like Morocco, DR Congo did, then these players will get 2.5 once. Pa! Hiyo inakuondolea culture ya kubet. All you have to do ni kutrain better, ufunge, kila mtu apate 2.5 million. And then wakiproceed, kila mtu apewe 2 bedroom ya affordable housing. We have this money somewhere, right? Where? Na tukika hapa na Fendo nimwambie Fendo niokolee thou, ataniambia ngojea kesho. I sit here with you. I tell you, give me something. You'll tell me unangojea kulipwa. Everyone is working on a salary. Salary yenye ikifika, kwanza itolewe 30% ya pay, itolewe 16 sijui VAT mahali, itolewe black tax. By the time unamalizana na hiyo salary yenye umeniambia utanigawia kesho, uko negative.
Yeah.
Na hujalipa 6,000 ya SHA.
Oh, quite unfortunate. Anyway, I would love for you, because we began a little late, to pick a story each, which will serve as your final remarks. In the meantime, we have stories of, that is on the Standard, pregnancy test in school trigger outrage, and we've had parents and the legal experts complain of their girls being taken over pregnancy test. and that story is on page 2 on the Daily Nation. We also have on page 3, visually impaired students lead KU to pop glory at music festival. That is on page 3. And Kenyatta University, just to mention, it is a very inclusive university. All groups compete, and we've seen the visually impaired bringing victory to the country. And also, not to forget, on page 4, DAP Kenya convenes crisis talks as Wamalwa na Tembea rift widens. That story is on page 7. You can also get to interact with more stories on these newspapers, but not to forget that on the Star, millions lost in countless payroll scam. We've had several loopholes indicated there on the Star that leads to salaries which are more than the amounts in payrolls. That story is on page 4 and page 5. Kindly, gentlemen, this is the moment for you to give us your final remarks to the story.
Start where? Start here?
Yes.
Asante sana. You remember you asking about voters and who to blame. The voters are to blame, but it's not because they are the perpetrators. They are the victims. They are vulnerable, and that's why they get used badly. So, the story I've picked is the story on page 2 about the pregnancy tests in school that are triggering outreach. And the Daily Nation editors have started with a letter to parents. Dear parents, are you aware that when you drop your teenage daughters at school, she could be subjected to intrusive and consented searches, frisked inappropriately by teachers under the guise of looking for illegal items? Parents, do you give your children illegal items when they are going back to school? Worse still, did you know that just a week after reporting back to school, many teenage girls are forced to undergo humiliating pregnancy tests? For any medical procedure in this country, there is someone called next of kin. I've noted, must be consulted. You see, if a man wants to go for vasectomy, a wife must be called to apeane consent. So I'm asking, ni sheria gani hii mwalimu atatumia ndo asubject mtoto wangu wa kike kwa pregnancy tests yenye haja consent, na hata hana consent juu ako under 18 ndio nafaa kupigiwa, yenye hata wakienda wapate ako na ball bado mimi ndio watapigia, waniambie mtoto wako alikosa adabu huko holiday akapata ball. That should not happen, and it is happening because we Kenyans have been made to believe that we are poor. And that is why we have something called ghettos or slums. This is a mentality created. And they are using a tool or a weapon called poverty. Wanaitumiaje? Tutakufinya, tukufinye. Alafu tukuambie tumesungisha bei ya unga. Na wao utapraise. Tutakufinya, tukufinye. Alafu tukupe 500. Utanunua nyama hiyo siku, semena nimekula unga sana, leta nikule nyama leo. Tutam ni tamu. And we'll still do the same mistakes at the ballot. I'm not talking about leaders. I'm talking to youths. I'm talking to these Gen Zs and millennials I'm seeing here behind the scenes. Juwale wako huko kamera siwaoni. Let us strive to do more civic education at the community level. You may not have money, but you have information. That is why when you went to school and graduated, they told you that they have given you powers to read and write. Those things, those powers are given by a vice chancellor, not by your class teacher who has been teaching you. So why are you at the community level leading others to cry and not to get solutions? Let them know, so that my people will not perish for lack of knowledge. Fendo today said about hawkers. Namaliza ya mwisho. Hawkers.
Time imetwisha.
Kabisa. Civic engagement. tuifanye bila complaints or hatuna do sijui nini. Social media iko.
All right, Fendo.
Yeah, the good thing with talking last is that you can correct the point of the person who talked prior. So I begin with the Ojwang's sentiments about the teachers, parents being warned that our students should not be done some tests here and there. And this is one of the challenges that I think comes with the democracy. Democracy is good, but sometimes it also brings some sort of, I don't want to use the term nonsense behavior, but let me just use it for the sake. Because when you are taking somebody to the school, and you will not, and that's a very pertinent issue, that when somebody is going to the school, even drug tests should be done. I think that one we should not even debate about that thing, because this kids
write it somewhere. We're talking about constitution. Tell me that when I bring my daughter, you will subject her to this test. Tell me I bring my daughter, she will be subjected to drug tests.
We need to be.
It's my body. It's me who is being affected.
It was my
whether it's a democracy or not. It's my life.
All right, let him finish.
Let me finish. A lot of kids get pregnancy while at home. When these kids are at the teacher's hands, most of them, they are always safer. Drugs, people don't even use them when they're at the teacher's hands. It's these long holidays that propagate lots of pregnancy, and data is there to show about this. So it is just calls for, prudence. That when somebody is coming to school, how did you take care of your parents? Sometimes even drug tests, because if this kid come to school and maybe had pregnancy that complicated her bodies or something like those, and maybe remember most of them are underage, then they die in the process. Who will be there to be blamed? If they come there and maybe starts the behavior that do not, consider vizuri with some other kids, what will they be doing? Remember, in school is a mix of cultures. It's not just one people that every kid is good. There's some who are growing from other places that they're being destroyed, and my kid is a good kid, is playing kids, but somebody else kid anacheza huko nje vibaya, then comes start teaching them. So we need to ensure that as they are coming to our hands, we ensure that they are clean, so that when we are subjected back them to you can say that my kid came there with the pregnancy tests prove that she was not pregnant, drug tests showed that he was not using drugs. Now, as is coming, is there somebody bringing these things to school? So we just need not to castigate, and it's not even the role of the teachers to raise for us kids. We must ensure that these kids are very, very straight. When I get kids, I don't think that thing can really play about. Right. Let's do them the test. Sometimes it can even be called do the test when they're going to school or even when coming back home.
This is burning. Allow me to finish with it.
No. Our time is up.
Please, a second.
I have not given. No, you will not. You should not talk.
I am a dad, and my daughter is 7 years old. 7 years old. I want to raise her right. I want her to take part in her own body issues. Right. I want her to be free with her body. Allow her to have consent.
All right.
This test. Just consent.
All right, Ojwang, consent. If you're using social media, you've heard of ladies posting, in my prime, right now ningekuwa na mwalimu wa, you've heard those stories. So is it the right to give that responsibility to your teacher, or is it your responsibility as a parent? This discussion is wide. We cannot finish it right now, but allow me to read a few comments from those who are engaging with us on social media. We have Engineer Francis Maina. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We have Gilo. We have Celian Dominic. We have Sakezi. We have Lisa Emma. We have Naomi Njeri. We have Beyond Standy. Thank you so much for being part of us and for being part of this production. 3 hours or so. Thank you so much for being part of it. Until next time, it is bye from us.